GTA San Andreas is without a doubt one of the best games Rockstar has ever made, and even today it still holds up, playing it decades after its initial release. But it wasn't just the great story, immense open world, and charm that's kept it alive and such a favorite for so long. In part, it owes some of its success and nostalgia to the community surrounding this game, and the many urban legends and myths that have come about in the years following its release. From very well-known ones that Rockstar themselves have acknowledged, such as Bigfoot, to more obscure sightings and myths that have been reported on forums, to YouTube hoaxes and Easter egg hunts. There was just some immense interest in this world that Rockstar had created in San Andreas, as not only was it the biggest open world we'd seen up until that point, but it was also the most alive, like a real living, breathing world, and many people connected with it, and felt that there might have been even more than Rockstar intended. The world was just so vast and immense that people could misremember or even claim that they'd seen things to their friends, and how were we supposed to know if he was lying or not? Sure, we could go investigate ourselves, which a lot of us did with these mysteries, but it really did feel like the world was so huge and almost surreal. Like these creepy and ominous myths and legends could really exist in the game, hidden away, waiting to be found. And that's kind of what I want to dedicate this video to, as we look into these, starting with some of the more well-known ones and moving to the more obscure. And let me just tell you, some of these might actually surprise you like they did me, because, well, some of these are actually real. So then, without further ado, let's get into the many myths and legends of GTA San Andreas. Bigfoot. By far the most infamous myth in not just San Andreas, but all of GTA and maybe throughout all of Rockstar's games. Truly one of the great early mysteries in gaming, basically starting this trend of cryptids and myths being talked about in San Andreas, originating all the way back to the early days of the game's release, and basically starting this whole myth hunting community, with dozens of reports coming in from players claiming to have seen Bigfoot roaming the San Andreas countryside, with even some photo and video evidence popping up to support that. Although that was also around the time that modding, including Bigfoot mods, were getting big, so there was no real way to tell if any of these claims were true. But by most accounts, Bigfoot was just seen walking around the forest and would run off if the player got too close, although some did claim that they were even attacked by Bigfoot. But there wasn't really much else in the way of evidence, except there was someone named Bigfoot, who was credited by Rockstar in the Thanks To section, although this was merely a nickname for a Rockstar employee. But eventually, Rockstar did put the issue to rest when, in an interview in 2005, Terry Donovan stated, quote, "There is no Bigfoot, just like in real life." So then, that's it, right? Well, not quite. Some people still believe Bigfoot is really out there in the game, even with Rockstar's statement, as well as the fact that any model or texture related to Bigfoot could not actually be found in the files. Although on the bright side, Rockstar has since embraced the Bigfoot myth, and has put him in both GTA 5 as a final mission when 100%ing the game, and in the Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare DLC, so maybe this really isn't the last we've seen of Bigfoot in Rockstar's games. Leatherface. This was another very popular rumor where it was said by various users on GTA forums that there was a killer seen wielding a chainsaw in the Panopticon, leading him to be known as the Panopticon Killer, or Leatherface as he was more well known, due to the various similarities with the character from the famous film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as the killer was said to wear human skin and attack using a chainsaw. Now, most of this speculation stemmed from people claiming to hear strange noises at night in the Panopticon, those being chainsaw noises. But eventually it went far beyond that, and escalated to people actually straight up claiming to see the masked killer, stalking about in the woods, revving his chainsaw. While some also even claimed that they were actually attacked by Leatherface, usually from behind in a surprise attack. Interesting to note also, in that area a chainsaw pickup can actually be found, but of course this is most likely here for just cutting down trees. But it has also been claimed that if you leave the game idling in the Panopticon area and come back later, your character will be at the hospital, the explanation being that you were killed by Leatherface. although this has never been proven in any way. There was also another rumor for getting Leatherface to appear, and the way to do this was to go to the Panopticon and freeze the time at 00, and then unfreeze and repeat for a few days, and eventually Leatherface would spawn. Some people also even point to a statement Rockstar made about the Panopticon as evidence of Leatherface's existence, where it states, quote, "At the very center of the state of San Andreas, Blueberry is a farming community, and home to Fleischberg Brewery. To the west of a local farm, Blueberry Acres lays a large hill, known locally as the Panopticon. The Panopticon affords views of both Bone and Flint counties and Easter Basin Airport serving San Fierro. We're sure some crime takes place here, only currently we don't know what." With that said though, this could mean a lot of things and isn't necessarily related to Leatherface at all. But besides these encounters, he has also been spotted elsewhere by players, such as in the creepy house in Los Santos, Red County, and in Fisher's Lagoon near the rusty wheelchair, which some believe could be related as a possible reference to the film. However, it's very unlikely that Leatherface or the Panopticon killer exists in the game, as there is no solid proof of his existence. There are screenshots and videos, but most of them can be just tied back to mods. Jason Voorhees. Very similar to the Leatherface rumors, this was about another iconic slasher film character who was said to be spotted within the game, said to be wielding his machete and wearing his trademark hockey mask. And he is most associated with 3 locations where he's said to be found, those being Shady Cabin, Chiliad Cabin, and Fisher's Lagoon. There's really not much evidence to support the existence of Jason at all though. I mean, there is a hockey mask which can be purchased, as well as a redneck character that some think looks like Jason and could possibly be him, but that's really a stretch. So the Jason myth, yeah, not true. Chupacabra. One of the most prevalent myths not only in the GTA games, but also in real life. These chupacabras, or goat suckers translated from Spanish to English, are these strange cryptid creatures with sharp fangs and spikes on their backs, and they've been described as looking like sort of large dogs except lacking hair. And the creatures were also reported to attack the player on sight. In real life, the creature is also said to have been spotted in and around California, where San Andreas is of course based on. However, in real life, the creature is also said to devour livestock and goats, hence the name, which don't appear at all in the game. And coupled with the fact that there is no solid evidence of its existence, it's most likely not real. Ghost of CJ's mom. So there are a bunch of ghosts that people have claimed to see in this game, and a lot of them are characters that are either talked about that are already dead, or ones that died during the course of the game. So yeah, I'll just focus on one here that doesn't really spoil the game. But it's also definitely the most notable one of them all, and that is the ghost of CJ's mom, Beverly Johnson, who was killed before the events of the game. And she is said to have been spotted walking around CJ's house in an apparition translucent form, with most players reporting that they saw her ghost at night, walking down the stairs and into the living room, although some have also claimed that they've even been attacked by the ghost. While others have said that the ghost is more likely to spawn if it's a Friday night, or even by setting the clock on your PC to Halloween before playing. Although none of this is probably true, as there is a texture which appears in the house after a grenade is thrown that could possibly be construed as a ghost, maybe. And there's also even an NPC that looks eerily similar to Beverly in her photo in the house. And yeah, it's definitely the same model. Maybe that NPC could have been confused for her, although she is typically just seen wandering around in Los Santos, and it's definitely not an apparition. But yeah, most of this speculation was put to rest when Rockstar officially commented on the mystery, saying that it was untrue. NPCs. Yeah, NPCs that, well, end themselves. That might sound kind of crazy, but this is in fact true. As has been noted numerous times by players of San Andreas, random pedestrians can be seen jumping off of buildings. and while this is probably merely a glitch or a fault in their AI, it is kind of disturbing and has led to a lot of speculation about these occurrences. And it can be seen happening at numerous locations throughout San Andreas, usually with them seen jumping off of roofs of high buildings such as Caligula's Casino and the Emerald Isle. But perhaps the most infamous example is the photographer, who can be found in Flint County near the intersection, who can typically be seen taking scenic photos along the coast, before eventually walking off the edge and falling to his death in the waters below. Also pretty interestingly, if CJ points a gun at the photographer, he holds his hands up in a surrender animation like most pedestrians do, but afterwards he proceeds to still walk off to his death. And if you attack the photographer, he will typically just follow you around taking pictures of CJ until you eventually escape or kill him. Despite the fact that all of this is true about the photographer, he simply most likely has just a pathing error, as some theorize in this area there was once meant to be a bridge before it was later removed in development, which might have caused or contributed to his strange behavior. Clowns. These are what they sound like. Clowns that are said to be in San Andreas that can just be found walking the streets, which have been noted by players and can also be found in ice cream vans and are actually said to not attack the player and are essentially just normal pedestrian NPCs. And yeah, this is actually true, as they have been documented in the game numerous times. However, they are kind of creepy, but they only attack the player if you attack them first. But there is said to be one that actually will attack the player unprovoked, that being what is known as the Midnight Clown, who was described as a clown serial killer who roams the streets at night, more specifically around City Hall, and attacks citizens and the player alike using a pickaxe as a weapon. And at night, when near City Hall, it's said that you can hear the laughter of the clown, and there is also even a red texture that is thought to be a bloodstain of one of his victims, which can be found in the area. But sadly, this is not true. There is no Midnight Clown serial killer, as numerous myth hunters have tried to track him down and none have been successful in locating him. Although this area near City Hall at night can still be pretty creepy. Mothman. Mothman is another real-life urban legend that made its way into San Andreas, with there being numerous accounts of this moth-like creature being spotted since the 1960s, usually in close proximity to tragedies and deaths. And in the game, it's said that the Mothman could be found with a similar-looking design to how he's been described in those real-life cases, as a large human-like bird with wings and distinct red glowing eyes. And just like the legend, it's thought that Mothman would appear whenever there were a large number of pedestrian deaths, such as a plane crash. And over the years, there have been many screenshots and videos of the creature, but these have all very likely been doctored. Some have alleged though that Mothman could be related to these structures found at the Sherman Dam, but these statues are actually based off of real-life statues found at Hoover Dam, which was the basis of the Sherman Dam in San Andreas. However, some have gone even further with this, stating that if you zoom in on the statues, you can hear a plane crash, which some think could be related to Mothman. Some have also pointed out a certain rock texture which they think might be related to Mothman, but I don't really see the resemblance if I'm being honest. And lastly, some say he can be spotted in the story mission Stowaway, when CJ has to parachute after jumping out of a plane, where some say a black flying creature can be seen. But really, there is no solid evidence that would point to Mothman's existence in San Andreas. Pigsy. Probably the most iconic character from the Manhunt series, and one of the main antagonists of Manhunt 1. Pigsy is a depraved serial killer, who wields a chainsaw and wears a pig's head as a mask. And with Manhunt also being a game released by Rockstar only a year prior to San Andreas, it's not really that surprising that some thought he could have been in this game, as a hidden character or even an Easter egg, which he actually is, although not in the way you might think, because he can be found as an action figure sold in Zero's shop in San Fierro. Although people also believed that the real Pigsy was in the game, and thus the myth was born. with some images and videos popping up showcasing him in their games. Some have also even said to have found footprints left by Pigsy, and some textures were also even discovered which some think is of Pigsy. Although it's just very unlikely that he's in the game as an NPC or anything. But I do think it was cool of Rockstar to at least throw in this Pigsy action figure Easter egg. The Spy. This is a myth revolving around an NPC simply called the Spy, who is said to stalk CJ, typically in the woods of Backo Beyond, which is said to happen after the player receives a strange phone call after walking around in that area. And it's thought that after that call, the Spy will spawn in your game and stalk CJ from a distance, hiding behind trees and bushes and such, taking pictures. With the main theory being that the Spy is actually Mike Torino or someone related to him, as he is a government agent, most likely CIA, who works with CJ in numerous missions, and has stated outright that he is spying on you, the player. So it's not too hard to believe that this could be true. It sounds like a cool detail that Rockstar could have included, but it doesn't seem to be the case unfortunately, as there is no irrefutable proof of the Spy's existence. UFOs. Just like in real life again, these UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, are a very popular myth, originating pretty much back to the first release of the game. And these are actually kind of proven in a way, because there are some blinking lights in the sky which can be seen when flying at a high altitude. And these lights actually leave behind a trail, so they are indeed flying, but they can never be caught up to as they are just too fast. Some think that these lights are just meant to be planes from a distance, but when you look closer by no-clipping or by some other means, you can see that these strange lights are just that. Lights. Glowing light spheres, I guess. There's no real plane or vehicle of any kind, although these spheres can be found in the files, and are given the name UFO light. So you could say that this is proven. Not to mention that there is a ton of stuff that can be found in the game, and even the story to support this, such as a UFO map located inside the Lil Probe Inn, which can also be found inside of Mike Torino's ranch. Kiflam. This strange myth is actually tied to the lore of the GTA games, in regards to the Epsilon cult, which appears in many of the Grand Theft Auto games, including San Andreas. And the Epsilon program is basically a parody of Scientology, and with its very strange tenets and beliefs, you could just dive into that for a while. There's even a bunch of side missions related to joining the group in GTA 5, but what we're here to talk about is Kiflam, a deity that is worshipped by the group, and is thought by some to actually exist in San Andreas. And although his appearance wasn't mentioned in any official way, for some reason it was thought that Kiflam was a tall blue chicken-like creature with wings that stood on 4 legs. And this interpretation was created into a mod, which may be where this strange design came from in the first place. So no, Kiflam is not physically in San Andreas. Tree Man. So this one's kind of weird. Basically, this myth stated that a certain tree located in Backo Beyond could sometimes be seen strangely moving around, which some chalked up to it being controlled by a supernatural entity, and some just simply believed that it was a glitch. It was first discovered in 2009 by Kevin Champagne 1, who made a YouTube video showing the Tree Man, as he called it. But yeah, not too much really with this one, it's just kind of an interesting glitch. Mr. Trenchcoat. Also sometimes referred to as simply the serial killer and also the Undertaker. This is one of the strangest yet most interesting myths in San Andreas, as Mr. Trenchcoat is a real NPC pedestrian that can be seen walking around San Andreas, specifically most often in Tierra Robada and Bone County. And as his name implies, he is seen donning a black trench coat, black hat, and an American flag handkerchief. But the most interesting thing about this NPC is his dialogue, which is very strange to say the least, as he says a lot of conspiracy theory-like things. such as talking about implants, lizard people, and of course aliens, where he may be implying that he was actually abducted, although he could just be crazy. But strangely enough, he's even associated with other myths, as he can sometimes spawn as the suicidal photographer, and is thought to also be related to the UFO and alien myths, but also even the chupacabra myth, even though it's a bit of a stretch, as he says sometimes when speaking to other pedestrians, quote, "seen the shape of a dog once," which I guess some people chalk up to him knowing about the chupacabra. And another thing, if you follow Mr. Trenchcoat for long enough, sometimes he will actually become hostile for no apparent reason, and will actually start attacking CJ. And instead of fleeing when gunshots are fired near him, he will instead just carry on as usual, sometimes even when a gun is pointed directly at him. There was also a theory that Mr. Trenchcoat was a serial killer who would occasionally attack pedestrians and the player with a shotgun, or even stab pedestrians near Fort Carson. Although these were all simply rumors and never proven, as most people think that most of these reports were either false or from people who had the riot sheet enabled, which actually makes pedestrians hostile. Players also think that they might have found his house, as there is a small house located near Tierra Robata Bait Shop, which is a place that he is frequently spotted at. Others think he lives in a different house located in Tierra Robata and will attack the player sometimes at night if you get too close. Although all of these accusations of Mr. Trenchcoat being a serial killer have never been proven, and it's likely he is just a crazy conspiracy theorist, or someone who was just abducted by aliens. Demons. Almost as soon as the game released, there were reports and rumors of demons existing in San Andreas, with the evidence of these being strange textures that could be found throughout the world that looked creepy or straight up demonic, such as this one located in a safe house in Blueberry, where also strangely a crime took place nearby, which some have attributed to the demon or some kind of sacrifice. Also, on top of a building near one of Woozy Moo's racing missions, which can only be reached using the jetpack, there can be found a very strange texture that some say is a demon. Although on the outside of the building, the texture just looks like normal faces. Although that first texture is pretty creepy actually, and it may just be a glitch, or maybe it's just a strange texture. Mermaids. These half-human, half-fish creatures were rumored to appear in San Andreas, being found to swim in the waters off the coast near the beaches in Los Santos, particularly at the spot where the lowrider dance party takes place. Although this myth has been mostly overshadowed by the sharks myth, which got far more attention and intrigue from players, and there are only a few images of the mermaids being found in San Andreas, and they are most likely fake, as there has been no solid proof of their existence. Headless Man. Starting sometime most likely in 2011, rumors and reports began to appear of a very strange NPC, a man wearing swim trunks and missing his head, that was said to appear usually in foggy weather near Blueberry. Somehow along the way, as myths and legends tend to do, a story became ascribed to the Headless Man, that being that he was a college student going for a swim in a river near the Blueberry area, and was for some reason attacked and decapitated by an NPC called the Junkyard Killer, who is a myth in his own right but is definitely not real. As for the Headless Man, it is most likely just a hoax, although a mod has even been created of the myth, though some still also theorize that the Headless Man could have also been a glitch. Hellhounds. These rumored creatures are described as large beast-like dogs with black fur and red eyes, kind of similar to the Chupacabra myth. Reportedly, the Hellhounds when encountered by players could not be killed, as they were extremely fast and could simply close in on the player before quickly killing them, with some also claiming that the Hellhounds would stalk them from behind, making growling noises and keeping their distance before attacking the player. Very strangely, the most common place that they were spotted by players was actually Ryder's backyard. Yeah. But apparently they've also been sighted at other places around the map, such as the Mount Chiliad Caves, but this myth is most likely false, as there is really no evidence to back up any of these claims. Casino Destroyer. This myth refers to a security guard working at the casino floor in Las Venturas, and was said to have been plotting to actually blow up the casino, with some thinking that he could have possibly been some sort of terrorist, as the security guard in question was rumored to be seen carrying around something that looked like dynamite. However, this is most likely not the case, as the only evidence of this is a very low quality video and you can't really see much at all. So yeah, interesting concept, but not true as far as we know, unfortunately. Sharks. Now, this myth has been the subject of intrigue and investigation almost since the launch of the game, as many players searched for the existence of sharks in San Andreas, with many people claiming to have seen them or even been killed by them in-game, although most players would chalk these deaths up to CJ just simply drowning. But the stories kept coming in, and over time they got more and more wild, with details changing, locations, circumstances, you name it. So it's no wonder that after all of this, not to mention numerous mods which muddied the waters even further, that a lot of San Andreas players did not believe that sharks existed. But a shark model was actually found in the game's files, although some were still skeptical and believed it could have just been a robotic shark model that belonged to Steve Scott from Vice City. But at least there was the model, right? Good enough. Well, not quite. Shockingly, during a hunt searching for the shark, on September 14th, 2014, a YouTuber and myth hunter, Davy Dustin, actually found a shark that spawned at the San Andreas fault line, the actual real deal. And another YouTuber, Dark Myth Hunter, also found a shark after searching for 16 days in a completely unmodded game, proving once and for all that while it's an extremely rare spawn, there are sharks in San Andreas. Although they do not actually attack the player, and they simply just have the same coding as dolphins, but hey, this is still an amazing find. Cave Demon. This is a pretty strange one, and unrelated to the earlier demon myth. This cave demon, as it's known, is a creature that was reportedly seen by players in the Mount Chiliad Natural Arc, sometimes in the woods and sometimes in a cave, and was said to appear mostly around midnight. The demon itself had a strange design, according to players that claimed to encounter it, saying it was green with horns, wearing a bracelet and only wearing fur underwear. Yeah, it's honestly just kind of more funny than anything else. And besides that, apparently when he would attack you, a random fire would start, and then like random explosions would go off and he'd start laughing as he attacked you. Pretty wild that someone even came up with this, but yeah, it even has a mod. So no, this one is not real, unfortunately. I really wish it was. Bears. Not unlike the sharks myth, it was believed that bears were originally in San Andreas in the beta version, and that they were just never finalized, because of it being hard to make realistic animations for the animal. Although some people even still thought that the bears were in the final version of San Andreas, and were just rare, with some reports coming out about them being found in the woods and even attacking them. However, these claims are all false, as there is no evidence to support that bears are or were ever in GTA San Andreas, not even in the beta or in the files, unlike the sharks. Cane Killer. This myth is of a particular pedestrian that is said to be found in the ghost town of Aldea Malvada during foggy weather, and this pedestrian is even said to attack the player on sight, with his nickname coming from his weapon of choice, a cane which he can be seen carrying around. And although there are screenshots and video of the Cane Killer, there's not really much else to go on, and it's thought that it's either a hoax or maybe some kind of glitch. Flying fish. This is something strange that would actually occur in San Andreas, where fish could sometimes be seen flying. And this is actually true, although it is most likely because of a glitch, as it usually occurs when the fish are attacked with an explosive weapon, like a grenade or RPG, which can only be done in the PS2 version of the game, which will then make the fish start, well, flying. As for the reason, well, the theory is that maybe the fish were originally going to be programmed to float to the surface after dying, like they might in real life, to add a little bit more realism, but it was just never fully implemented, although this bit of code might have just been left in the PS2 version. Which could be why it's only possible in that specific version, but that's simply a theory. We don't really know for sure what's going on here. The Psycho. This is another pedestrian myth, of an NPC that is simply dubbed the Psycho, who is unused in the game, but was actually found in the files under the name psycho.txd. So this is actually true. His model can be seen wearing a black beanie, green jacket, and military pants and boots, and despite not actually appearing in the base game, there was plenty of rumors and speculation that was spread around thanks to the ominous name he was given in the files, as we don't exactly know what he was actually planned to do in the game. Theories range from him being an aggressive criminal that would just attack the player, to him being in the military, possibly working at Area 69, or that he was even a serial killer. Digging a little deeper into this cut character, it was found in the pedestrian stats file that the Psycho had 0 lawlessness and fear, and 100 temper, meaning that he would be extremely aggressive, even more so than the average criminal. Like many other myths and legends, some have claimed to have encountered the Psycho and even been attacked by him, although these are all false. However, it is true that he was an unused pedestrian, and a pretty interesting one at that. Mount Chiliad Angel. A pretty strange occurrence and myth that is found on Mount Chiliad is what's known as the Mount Chiliad Angel, which was spotted by players at the summit, and has been described as some sort of mist or cloud that is shaped like an angel. Some thought that this was merely a glitch and nothing more. Some think it is just a cloud, and some just believed that it was a hoax, as mods had been created for this myth. Some believe though that this is some sort of Easter egg by Rockstar, and could be related to the Rock Angel, which is a similar phenomenon that can be found on a rock in Back-O Beyond, which has a texture that some think looks like an angel. However, we do know that this texture that appears is real. But it's more than likely simply a glitched cloud rather than something to do with angels or whatnot. But I'll let you be the judge of that. Loch Ness Monster. Also called Nessie or the Fisher's Lagoon creature, this is a cryptid and myth said to be located in or around Fisher's Lagoon, which is a hotspot of a lot of myths and conspiracy theories in this game. And very interestingly, just like the real myth of the Loch Ness Monster, it started with rumors and sightings of the head of a creature found in the waters of Fisher's Lagoon, although some also claimed it could be found in other areas in San Andreas, such as Ghost Lake or San Fierro Bay. And according to the legend, if you left your game on all night in real life time, with CJ sitting in a boat, then by morning CJ would be at the hospital, the implication being that you were killed by the Loch Ness Monster. This is another really common trope around these myths. And it's not really proof of anything. I mean, you can really die in a bunch of ways in that much time. Now, various images and videos have come out allegedly showing the creature, although most are faked, and like Bigfoot, the claims were put to rest when Rockstar eventually stated that the creature was not real. Although, just like Bigfoot, they did eventually implement the Loch Ness Monster, or a creature just like it, into GTA 5. Specifically in GTA Online, where the creature can be spotted in the water during the Cayo Perico heist. Ghost cars. Another one of the most popular myths in San Andreas. Ghost cars is also very fascinating because I think this is the one that made a lot of the community start to take some of these myths more seriously. Because, well, this is one of the first proven myths. Now, for a while, these ghost cars, which would spawn in the woods of Back-O Beyond, really freaked out some players, as there was no explanation for cars driving without, well, a driver. There were no people that could be seen in these cars, and yet they were driving themselves, with some people saying that they even tried to run them over. But there is a logical explanation for all of this. See, these ghost cars were all typically spawning in the same area in the woods, and they were all Glendales, a certain type of car. The reason that they looked like they were driving themselves is because of them just simply spawning on a hill, which causes them to roll down, giving the illusion that they are driving themselves. As for them running over players, well, that's just a coincidence. They don't have any pathing of any kind and are not controlled by any AI or NPC. Still, it's a very interesting myth. Aliens. Now, along with Bigfoot and a couple other ones, this is one of the most popular theories in myths, and for good reason. There is just so much related to aliens that can be found in all of these games. From simple small Easter eggs to major story beats and missions, and of course UFOs, which we talked about earlier. It's no wonder people believe that there are aliens in GTA San Andreas. Most often, they were reported to be seen by players in the desert areas, especially in or around Area 69 for pretty obvious reasons, it being a direct parody of Area 51. Now, players who claimed to see the aliens claimed that they were surprisingly not aggressive and wouldn't attack the player, and were the typical depiction of aliens, with them being slender and gray with big eyes. Now, of course, for the most part, aliens are played for more of a joke than anything else in the GTA games, and they are referenced quite a bit, such as with Mr. Trenchcoat. And even in a story mission called Black Project, where CJ has to get into Area 69, you can hear someone on the intercom say, quote, "All personnel working on alien bodies evacuate immediately." So yeah, you could say that aliens exist in the 3D GTA universe. Well, even the HD one for that matter. Although those physical encounters with aliens are not real, and are either fabrications or just the work of mods. But there is still a decent amount to look into with all of these alien Easter eggs, and not just in this game, but the entire GTA series. Okay, well, that was a ton of interesting myths and legends, some of which even had some truth to them. But as some of you may know, this is far from all this game has to offer in terms of conspiracies, mysteries, and myths in general. There is so much to dive into in this game, and it would be almost impossible to cover it all. But we did take a look at some of the most interesting and standout ones, I think. So let me know, do you think any of these myths could be true? Or do you have any experiences similar to these situations that maybe you couldn't explain? Let me know, I'd love to hear about it. I just love delving into the kind of mythical and mysterious type of culture that surrounds not only this game, but all the GTA and Rockstar games. There's just this air of mystery and intrigue in all of their titles, and I think a lot of other people feel the same way. So I do hope we keep hearing about these interesting accounts, even if most of them are just hoaxes at the end of the day. It's all just good fun.